Coming up, University of Iowa President Bruce Harreld addresses President Trump's executive order on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And later, Iowa City and UI police are cracking down on off-campus gatherings and parties.
Welcome to DITV Now, your flash update on all the latest headlines coming out of the Daily Iowan newsroom. I'm your host, Elizabeth Neruda.
And I'm Shivancha Huja. President Harreld has responded to the suspension of DEI training. The suspension comes after President Trump's executive order that prohibits workplace training on, quote, divisive concepts, end quote. If the UI does not comply, it could lose federal funding. Despite the order, President Harreld has stressed that, quote, the history of racism and discrimination in our nation is an unquestioned fact, end quote. The UI has paused their DEI training for 2 weeks to figure out how to abide by Executive Order 13950. University officials have stressed that this is a temporary setback and that training will resume in 2 weeks. Other universities, like the University of Michigan, have chosen to defy the order until more legal information is clarified.
Bars have been closed for over a month, but off-campus parties have become a safety concern for the UI and Iowa City community. Continuing parties during COVID-19 has put the Iowa City community on edge.
We haven't seen a significant increase. They were up, but we attribute some of that to people are calling when they may not be as large and big as in previous years, just because of concerns about social distancing or masks.
The UI Police Department has been assisting Iowa City Police on the weekends to handle the increase in calls. While most are noise complaints, officers must determine whether the parties are breaking the student accountability policy. The policy is a code of conduct that students are contractually obligated to follow, both on and off campus. It has been adjusted to include COVID-19 safety measures. Officers are also stressing the importance of masks and social distancing whenever they respond to these calls.
Not any differently than we have in the past, except for we'll add that education element of, hey, you're supposed to socially distance if you're outside. You're supposed to avoid large crowds of, unrelated people, and wear masks. So we'll do that educational element is probably the addition to what we would have previously, and our officers are also going to the parties wearing a mask.
The university is stressing that it is students' personal responsibility to protect the community during the pandemic. The UI will intervene when necessary. UI Assistant Director of Media Relations Haley Bruce said, quote, the primary goal is to have voluntary compliance with this effort. However, if absolutely necessary, students' repeated failure to meet these procedures may be addressed through the Office of Student Accountability, end quote. Students can expect to keep COVID-19 safety protocols in place through the spring semester, including the ban on large gatherings.
The clock is ticking in Manhattan, and it's predicting how much time is left until the effects of greenhouse gases and climate change are irreversible. The clock doesn't provide climate change solutions. Instead, it functions as a doomsday reminder that some people are saying increases eco-anxiety. Environmental organizations on campus have mixed reactions on the clock. Co-president of the UI Environmental Coalition, Emily Manders, said, quote, this clock doesn't address the climate change's effects on marginalized communities, end quote. Other students feel it is a good representation of our current climate situation, especially since Iowa's recent derecho. UI Gardner's co-president Olivia Bowman said, quote, the climate change clock is a really good example of this kind of apathy towards large corporations and the emissions they are emitting and putting a lot of the responsibility on individuals, end quote. These orgs are promoting solution-based answers for climate issues in Iowa by advocating change within the university and keeping people informed.
Downtown businesses have partnered with local artists to showcase their art for the 20th annual Fall Gallery Walk. This partnership allows the community to financially support local businesses and artists. This has become crucial during COVID-19. Jewelry, pottery, paintings, and drawings are being displayed throughout the downtown district. This year's Gallery Walk has been going on since last Friday.
This year, because of COVID, we've mixed things up a little bit, and we've extended it a whole week so that people can spread out what time they come and do the tour. We didn't have an open house with the artists, so it's not quite as exciting and special of a moment as it usually is, but it's been fun.
The Gallery Walk is open to everyone wanting to enjoy a free self-guided tour of local shops and pieces of art. Today is the last day to enjoy the Gallery Walk. Grab your mask and take a walk downtown and enjoy the art.
Bust out the sunscreen, Iowa City. This weekend will bring back the summer weather. Today will be 85 with a low of 61, and that sun will stick around all weekend with more 80-degree days.
Thanks for tuning in to DITV Now. We'll be back Monday with all the latest from the University of Iowa, Iowa City, and Hawkeye Nation. From Iowa City, I'm Elizabeth Neruda.
And I'm Shivansh Ahuja. Have a great weekend.